Good evening from Anglia News. First tonight, a 92-year-old woman has died in a house fire in a Northamptonshire village. 4 crews were called to her home in the village of Walgrave near Kettering just before 5 yesterday afternoon. Kate Prout reports.
Fire investigators examined the house in Holcott Road today, searching for clues as to what could have started this ferocious and fatal fire. 4 crews arrived here at 4:45 yesterday afternoon to find the ground floor well alight.
In this instance, there was a well-developed fire, and there is always a risk of that rapidly escalating and flashing over to the rest of the property. So they have to take that into account in their tactical plan. In this case, the crews arrived and made an entry immediately into the property and searched, started tackling the fire, and were obviously searching for the casualty.
Today, the village of Walgrave attempts to return to normal. But fire prevention officers spent the day warning other homeowners in the area about the need for smoke detectors and a decent route of escape in the event of a house fire.
We conduct a free home fire safety check within the premise, in which we'll install smoke detectors where there aren't any or where additional ones are required. And we also look for other risks to safety in the home and raise awareness of the occupiers to those potential risks.
The victim hasn't yet been named, but we do know that she was 92 and lived here on her own, but had carers coming in throughout the day. A very tragic end, then, to a very long life. Kate Prout, Anglia News, Walgrave in Northamptonshire.
A man from Peterborough has been found guilty of shaking his 6-week-old son to death. Ryzad Spywak, who's 30, was convicted of killing baby Peter following a trial at Cambridge Crown Court. The Polish national was found guilty of murder and causing grievous bodily harm. He's going to be sentenced at the Old Bailey later. Peter died from severe brain damage and cardiac arrest. He had 10 fractured ribs. A family who bought their dream home in Northamptonshire say they're devastated by plans to build a rail line just yards from their home. Tanya and Russell Parsons' house in Thorpe Mandeville is worth £2 million, but they say it's going to be worthless if the plans go ahead. Claire McGlasson reports.
It's a Grade 2 listed former farmhouse worth £2 million, with original features and extensive landscaped grounds. But the latest addition to this dream home in Northamptonshire could be a high-speed rail line just yards from the back door. What's more, the Parsons family from Thorpe Mandeville say they only found out by accident.
I was at school pick-up and a mother came up in the playground and went, "Have you seen the news today? There's a new high-speed train route planned to go through your village." And at that moment I just started feeling totally sick about it, and I rang up my husband and said, "Go online and can you try and find this route?" Every waking moment you can't help but think about this train and what it's going to mean, sort of every 3 minutes hurtling through at 250 miles an hour in an area which up until now the only thing you'd hear was birds.
The proposed route for the London to Birmingham line would mean their neighbours' houses would be demolished and part of their own gardens swallowed up. But the family say they haven't had a single letter from the government and no guarantees that they'd receive compensation.
We're also having to use our own money to go and find out this information rather than it being supplied to us. If this scheme is for the greater good and we're going to lose our home, then I would expect a lot more from the government coming to us and say, this is for the greater good, these are the reasons why, and this is why you're losing your home, rather than us having to be frustrated in trying to find out the answers.
The government says there will be a consultation period before the route is finalised. Tanya and Russell are determined to fight the plans to save their home and their community. Claire McGlasson, Anglia News, Thorpe Mandeville in Northamptonshire.
Now, the parents of a 6-year-old girl from Essex who can't eat or drink are now trying to raise awareness of the condition and raise funds for more research. Daisy Palmer, who lives near Brentwood, was born with a rare condition that prevents her from digesting any food or drink. Her life depends on a 24-hour drip directly into her heart. James Bush reports.
When Daisy Palmer plays doctors and nurses, her teddies don't just get a few plasters, but intravenous lines, cannulas and dressings. At just 6 years old, this little girl has learnt very young what it means to receive constant medical attention. Born with a rare condition that prevents the digestion of any food or drink, her life depends on the nutrients delivered by her specialist 24-hour drip. Now totally dependent on her arterial line, Daisy has spent weeks at the Royal London Hospital. Her mum and dad are now learning how to cope with her complex medical needs for themselves.
It's a lot to take on board as a mum when you're not trained as a nurse, but we do it.
Tracy is now raising money for the Pseudo-Obstruction Research Trust, a charity aiming to fund a national register and much-needed research into this little-known condition. Daisy, meanwhile, has the simple dreams of any little girl.
Ice cream and chocolate.
And from someone who's coped with so much, it really doesn't seem like a lot to ask. James Bush, Anglia News.
More than 100